one of these in your background,
Well,
then
let me ask you
you'll
a question.
perjure yourself.
Here's a kid that shot a guy with a BB gun. Mm-hmm. Now, it happened to be a BB gun.
Right.
It could have been any kind of a gun.
Oh, sure. It could have been a slingshot.
Yeah,
Could have threw rocks
yeah.
at him. Sure.
So but he fired a gun at this guy.
Right.
And they gave him a license anyway.
Well, firing a BB gun's not a crime, but I mean, it's certainly certainly a poor judgment.
It was a BB gun, but it could have been, depending on his father or could have been any kind of a gun.
Oh, sure.
One with a bullet in it.
Right. Right.
And they had no concerns.
It didn't. Well, according to the state laws, it didn't forbid him from getting a license. I had another guy who got caught egging houses on Halloween one year. Now, he was throwing eggs. He could have been throwing rocks. He could have been throwing eggs.
I mean, that's not the same thing.
Yeah, I know. But
throwing an egg and shooting a guy with a BB gun, in my opinion, is two different things.
Oh, it is.
Now, he's a kid.
He's a kid.
I understand kids do stupid things. My hand is up. I did stupid things.
There's two of us in the room.
And so we understand that.
Sure.
But I'm just trying to get a feel of this because, the fact of the matter is, the chief still has to make that ultimate judgment.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Now, the guy who shot the telephone pole worker with the BB gun, if he didn't tell the police, then he wouldn't have been able to get a license because then he would have perjured himself, and because he answered the questions that he'd never appeared in court as a defendant for any criminal chase.
There's a series of questions.
So yeah, there is on the application. There's a number of questions.
Okay, so he has to divulge all that.
Yes.
If he hides anything.
If he hides anything, then he's
then they're gonna see you later.
You got it. Then he's going to be an unsuitable person.
Now at that point, let's say he's got to see you later. Mm-hmm. He can still go get a gun.
Not legally. Not legally. If you don't have I've bought gun. Now we talked about the gun show loophole thing.
Yeah.
The gun show loophole is this: if I'm a private individual going around a gun show and I've got a rifle on my shoulder that I want to sell, and I get a little flag on the end of the barrel that says "for sale," somebody can come up and say, "Hey, listen, I'd like to buy that from you," and in order for me to transfer that to him, I've got to fill out some paperwork, and he's got his information goes on that paperwork, and then my information goes on there, and the information about the gun goes on there, and he gets a copy of it, I get a copy of it, and then we send one off to the state.
Oh, so that you can't just sell a gun.
You can't, not legally.
Not legally.
Not legally, right?
Well, isn't that one of the biggest problems, though? Is that it's the people who do things legally. They're the one, like you teach them how to properly handle these things. Yeah, mistakes are made. Yeah, two brothers are playing with a gun and one of them gets shot. Mm-hmm. We understand those horror stories. But realistically, any transaction in Massachusetts has to be recorded.
Now, legally
if it isn't,
supposed to.
If someone decides, hey, what the heck, I'll sell the gun. Who's going to know?
Right. Well, what happens
that's criminal. That's criminal.
It is, absolutely. If somebody wants to give me a gun, I've got to fill out paperwork to say that I've got the gun. If I get some firearms through an inheritance, let's say my grandfather passes away and wants to leave me some guns, then when I acquire those, I'm supposed to fill out some paperwork in order to get those, and let the state know that even though my grandfather probably didn't have paperwork on these things because they've been around forever, I've got to let the state know that when I take possession of them, that I now have these firearms. And that's how it's supposed to be done.
A lot of that is enforceable. I mean, how
are they going to know?
They would never know. I mean, if somebody sells a gun at a gun show or on the street someplace, and you don't fill out the form, they're never going to know unless somebody tells them.
Right. I mean, certainly on the street. I actually had somebody steal some guns from me in 2007. I flew from Providence to Chicago to go. I grew up outside Chicago, and I went to go shooting with one of my friends. And I'm like, hey, it's been a long time since we talked. I'm into shooting. Let's go shooting. So we found a local range where we could buy ammo outside Chicago, and I brought 4 of my handguns with me.
How did you get them on the plane?
It's legal to do. All you do is, if you're going to travel with them, all you do is declare with the TSA that you have a firearm, and sometimes they check to see if they're unloaded. Sometimes they'll trust you, but you have to declare that you have them. Then they take your suitcase and they put it right in front of all the other suitcases. They scan it and then they send it right to the back. I can't take it on with my carry-on.
You can't go in the plane.
No, you can't go in the carry-on. But it can go in the belly with the rest of your suitcase. Because guys travel all over the country and all over the world, go on hunting trips and ship their guns back and forth and take them on the plane with them. Yeah. So what happened is, I came back from Chicago, and I I foolishly stopped at the bathroom before I went to get my suitcase because I didn't want to go on the plane. So by the time I got to the carousel to pick up my suitcase,
Gone.
somebody had stolen my suitcase. You got it. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from somebody in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and he says, my roommate stole your suitcase. I'm turning everything over to the Pawtucket Police Department. And I'm like, who are you? How did you get my name? What's him? You know, all these sorts of things. Later on, I called the Pawtucket Police Department and, you know, let them know that my stuff was, I let them know what the story was. Before then, now, what I did immediately was when I came back to Sturbridge is I called the local police department and I filled out some forms to send to the state to let them know that my guns were stolen in case and I don't know where they were stolen from, but they could have ended up in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago and some crime scene there, and they say, well, you know, let's check all of our records.
Where'd they steal them? In Boston?
No, they stole them in Providence.
Oh, at Providence Airport.
Yes, and the guy who stole them just picks up suitcases and steals the suitcases and sells the contents.
Yeah. So
I filled out all the paperwork. I let the state know. I let the local police know. I called the FBI's stolen firearm hotline. So I did all that stuff because I didn't want my guns to end up at a scene of a crime and have them come back and say, hey, listen, Charlie, your guns were at the scene of a crime in the south side of Chicago, and you just came from Chicago, so obviously you committed these crimes.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the case.
No.
So 2 weeks later, I get a phone call. This guy says, hey, my roommate stole your stuff. I'm turning everything over to the Pawtucket Police Department. I went down later that week and got all of my stuff. My suitcase, all of my, you know, ear protection, eye protection, all that sort of stuff. There were 3 of the 4 guns were there. The 4th gun, he was trying to sell illegally on the streets in Providence. Well, I was involved in the court case, you know, because I wanted this guy.
Did they go after him?
Yes, they did.
Did they ever find the gun?
Yes, I did get it back. It's known as evidence.
Had he sold it?
He did not sell it. So he tried to sell it to somebody in Providence, and somebody reported that there's a guy selling a gun on the street, and you know the Providence police came in and picked him up and took him away. Then I was involved with the court case against him because I'm like, hey, listen, this guy violated me. I'm the victim here. This guy needs to serve his time. Well, one of the things that I think are an issue here in the States is that, and it's deals with the whole gun issue, is the judge wanted this guy to go away for a whopping 1 year of jail time. And I did a little research. I did a Google search on what the gun laws are in Rhode Island, and selling a stolen firearm is punishable by 10 to 20 years. But the judge only wanted to put him away for 1 year. So what I did was I wrote the judge a letter and I said, the laws say it's supposed to be 10 years. Why are you putting him away for only 1? I said, it was legal for me to have the guns. It was legal for me to have it, in Massachusetts, and legal for me to take to Chicago. I legally transported them. I filled out all the paperwork. I jumped through all the hoops I needed to jump through in order to get the guns, yet I still end up being a victim of a crime. And you want to let this guy out in 1 year. Well, the judge read my letter and put him away for 10 years. So the attorney that I dealt with said, he's like, listen, I really appreciate you doing this. A lot of people don't want to be involved with this. They don't want the criminal to know who their victim is, because for whatever reason, they just want to get their stuff back and say everything's fine and everything's good.
They have that fear.
Sure.
I mean, the fear is that
this guy's already a criminal.
Yeah,
he's going to come back and do something bad.
Sure. He's going to get a gun, or he's going to meet some guy in prison that's got a pal. They'll be knocking on your door.
Right. Now, I will say this. The only time I've ever slept with a loaded gun under my bed is the night that I got the phone call that said that somebody stole your guns and has them in Pawtucket. And we put the security alarm on the house, and I put a loaded shotgun underneath the bed. There wasn't a round in the chamber, so I'd have to rack the slide on the action. And that's the only time I've ever slept with a loaded gun under the bed. Other than that, everything's locked and secure, and cable locks and cases and everything.
I completely understand. The good news is you got him back.
I know, this was great. I
mean, think about it. If he could have peddled those 4 guns.
And this is how people get guns illegally. So I did everything I needed to do, yet I still end up being a victim of a crime, and a guy ends up with my guns and tries to get them on the street.
You were very, very fortunate, and there were 2 good guys that played a role in this whole scenario. The roommate was the first good guy who called you up and told you.
Right. Well, chances are good. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And the second good guy was the guy you tried to peddle a gun to who called the cops.
Yeah, this is true.
Now, if either one of those guys didn't do anything,
I would have been out of luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. I assume that the roommate didn't have a gun license and didn't want anything to do with this,
Well,
which
I
is
think
why
what happened
he
when
dropped the dime.
Well, I think what happened when they opened that suitcase and they found.
Oh, I'm
guns
sure they
in
thought
there.
it was a gold mine.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And the roommate saw the guns. He said, "Whoa."
Yeah,
You know.
I don't want anything to do with this. I'm glad I got them back. Like I said, there were 4 guns. 3 of I don't want to say that they're not irreplaceable, but one of the guns was a gun that my father had, and my father died when I was a young boy. So that one has a lot of special meaning. And the other ones, I can replace the other ones, but that was one that couldn't be replaced.
Then that for someone like me, that begs this question, because people steal luggage at airports. Mm-hmm. Should there be some way to have those guns more secure so that you had to go to a window to get them or something like that?
They would be more secure if I brought them on the airplane with me.
Well, no, but then that's not going to happen.
Then I'm breaking federal law.
That isn't going to happen.
I realize.
You know what I'm saying? In other words, if when they knew that thing was there, that suitcase,
right,
that there was, I mean, even coming back from Chicago, they knew there was guns in it. They could have put a code on it.
Right, they could have.
And then when they handled it, they would have brought it to their little window.
They could have took it somewhere else. I think that they used to put tags on suitcases to mark it and say that there were firearms in there, but I think that caused a lot more crimes than it prevented.
Oh, yeah, someone sees them and steal them. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So honestly, the easiest way that this could have all been avoided is at the airport, if when they staple, they put the label on your suitcase and then they staple the little call numbers to your envelope.
Yeah.
Right. If they checked those when you went out, that would have been great, because he didn't have my ticket, and my ticket, identified the suitcase to me, and whoever it was, the security didn't check that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that happens all the time. You grab your suitcase, you walk right out.
Oh yeah, you do.
And there's and it's just
no one
just
knows
what it is. Nobody knows.
And I've seen it. I've been waiting for suitcases on a heavy flight, and I've seen it where someone will grab a suitcase, the wrong one, and start out with it, and say, "Excuse me, sir, I don't think that's yours." "Yes, it is. It's mine." "Oh, I'm sorry."
Oh, exactly.
He checks the
number. Yeah.
Yeah.
How many people have black suitcases? Everybody.
It's really what it is. Well, we're going to take a quick break, Charlie. Folks, we're talking this morning with Charlie Cook, and Charlie is a firearm instructor, gives people lessons, and he, as he mentioned, one of them is 4 hours, one of them is 8 hours, and we're having a great discussion on something that is buzzing around the country, so I'm so delighted he's here because I'm learning from it, and I hope you are too. Because there is, as Paul Harvey used to say, now we're learning the rest of the story. So we'll be right back, folks.
Paul's Automotive on the corner.
Are you fed up with having to leave the office every morning to go pay outrageous amounts of money for your favorite cup of coffee? Those days can be a thing of the past.
This morning, and we're talking with Charlie Cook, and Charlie is a terrific fella, and he's willing to come in this morning and have a good-spirited conversation on weapons and guns, and he is a instructor, and he teaches people the right way to use them and the proper way to use them, and the cautions, and so what we're doing, we're just chatting this morning, and it's been a great experience for me because honestly, you build up in your head what you think things are, and then you chat with someone like Charlie and you find out not quite. And there are a ton of laws and all kinds of protections. Some of them, unfortunately, are basically unenforceable unless somebody, as in your case, you got a tip, and the cops got a tip, and bang, bang, and you had your guns back.
Eventually,
yeah. And so, those things work, and that's the case. But again, let's go back, because the thing I learned today, there are many different licenses that are available. What's the basic license, the simple one?
The simple, I say we have 3.5 different licenses. I believe that Massachusetts is the only state where you have to have a license in order to have mace or pepper spray. So we have the bottom tier license is called the FID restricted card, and that only allows you to have mace and pepper spray. And I think that one's $25. You fill out with the police, and then you're good to go. The next license we have, you do have to take a course for, and you do have to take a basic firearm safety course. It is the FID card, or the Firearms Identification Card. The FID card allows you to have non-large capacity rifles and shotguns. A large capacity firearm is a semi-automatic that's capable of accepting or readily modifiable to accept a detachable magazine that holds more than 10 rounds, or a semi-automatic